Hi, my name's Tyler, and today I'm going to be showing how to create a Nagios XI plugin in Wizard. The agenda, we got some prerequisites for development, planning out your plugin in Wizard, developing, testing, deploying, and then finally creating your wizard, deploying your wizard, and then at the end I'll do a live demo. Prerequisites for developing, you need to have an understanding of Python and PHP to be able to make a Python plugin and your wizard. You need a code editor. For this I used Visual Studio Code, and you need a Nagios XI server. And for this I used a VMware Workstation player. So first you need to plan out your plugin. You have to decide what your plugin is going to do, and I decided, I was inspired by Jason's presentation, to make a plugin to count the number of hops to different hosts using Traceroute. And so to do that, you count the length of the output of the Traceroute command in the terminal. And so then, once you know what your plugin is going to do, you have to define your status codes that Nagios will display. So you need to know what OK is going to be, what warning is going to be, and what critical is going to be. And so these thresholds are what will determine the overall output of your plugin and give warnings based on the input that you get. And so then you need to decide what command line arguments do you need to run your plugin. And so for this, some of the ones that I used were the host to check, some thresholds for the warning and critical. I also had a protocol command line argument for which protocol to use Traceroute with. Verbosity for the status message length, you can change how much output there is, and then also a debug mode is helpful. So developing the plugin, you can start with an outline, and then you want to parse in your arguments from the command line, the main logic of the plugin. Make sure you have error handling to exit gracefully, and then at the end, exiting and returning the status code. So outline, this was the outline I initially used after looking at some other plugins. You need the shebang line, which ensures that the plugin is executed with the proper interpreter, and then your main function, and then your main entry point. To test in the terminal, you can go to admin in the Nagios XI UI, and then to system extensions, manage plugins, and then you can upload your plugin there, and then click the upload arrow. And then once it's up there, you can navigate to the plugin folder within Nagios XI terminal and run it to test to see if it works. And to deploy your plugin, it's the same thing as shown previously, except you can go to settings, advanced configuration, core config manager, commands. Then you need to create your new command and specify arguments for it. And then to use the command, you have to go to settings, advanced configuration, core config manager, monitoring, and then services to create a new service that will utilize your command to run it on the host. And so then the description that you set for the service is the name that the service will actually show under the host in the Nagios XI dashboard. And then you can set your check and alert settings, and then you have to make sure to add your service to the different hosts under the Manage Hosts tab. Then creating a wizard. The wizards have a very specific file structure and naming conventions that, if not done properly, will result in the wizard not being properly recognized when you try to upload it. So first you need a wizard name.inc.php file, which will run through your various steps, which are basically the form pages where you gather input for which command line arguments will be used to execute your plugin. And then so the step files are made in PHP, and they're just forms that have input boxes. And then you need to add your plugin file, and then you can find a good logo for your wizard too. To deploy your wizard, you can go to admin, system extensions, manage config wizards, and then you can browse and upload your zipped wizard folder. Then I'll show my code. So here is my check route hops plugin. Here I start with some import statements. I define some constants for easy reading to know what is actually happening. A global args variable. And then here you can see I set up an argument parser to parse in all of the arguments from the command line. So I have host, timeout, warning, critical, verbosity, the protocol, the first protocol to attempt, and then I'll run through the others, and then debug mode, which will import or print out to determine a lot more stuff that can help you figure out if anything's going wrong with your plugin. So then it parses the arguments, and then if debug mode is enabled, it'll say that it is. Print out what your arguments were, so that way if there's errors in parsing them, you'll know. Then some error handling, some exceptions. You need to check if the host was given. If not, just say a critical, there wasn't one provided. And so here's the list of protocols that it attempts to do traceroute with. And so part of the thing that I made was protocol can be specified in the arguments, and then that'll be the protocol that is ran first, and then it won't bother checking the other ones if that one properly finds a route to the host. So it just removes that one, puts it in first. Then we start with having 0 hops counted. The use protocol is by default the first one. Start with 0. And then for the rest of the protocols, so first you want to check route hops using the first protocol, and then after that, if it failed to find a route to that host with the first protocol, it'll run through the rest of them and then attempt to use it. And if it does find a route, it'll break out and print the status message. So then if no hops were found for all of the protocols, it'll say critical error, failed to determine hop count for all of the different protocols. So in here we set the status code for the warning and critical status messages, and then a dictionary defining which status code returns which string. So finally we build our status message. If hops is 1, we want a singular, and then if hops is plural or multiple hops, then we'll say hops were counted. And then here is the verbosity argument. If verbosity is 1 or greater, then we'll add which protocol was used to reach the host. And if verbosity was 2 or greater, we'll also add in what the command executed was. And then we finally print the message and then exit with the status code. And then here is the helper function get route hops, which actually does most of the heavy lifting of this plugin. It gets the protocol, and then it runs the traceroute command with different arguments based on which protocol it's attempting to reach the host with. And then if there's no return code, it runs it says that there was an error, couldn't process the command, and then it counts the number of lines in the output. Minus is 1 because there's a header line, and then adds some debug statements to help you find these results. You'll see this soon. It prints out all the different hops that were made, then you return, and then some final error handling. Then I'll move to the wizard. Here is the wizard inc file. So first you need to initialize your wizard. So this is all just like the metadata. For your wizard, you have your description, the function that runs here, your preview image with your logo, copyright, author, all that. And then in the function, you can see that it runs through the different stages, opens up the different step files that you create, which are all the different individual forms that gather the data, and then the variables that are gathered are passed through the steps as you move through the forms. And then at the end here, you see I have all these variables, do some error checking to make sure that proper valid inputs were given, such that if they enter some random string, it won't let it run with that. Then the last stage, and then finally, if the host doesn't already exist, it creates a new host using the given arguments, and if it does exist, then it just makes a service for it with the command. And then here's step 1. It's just my step 1 is just a simple one that just gets the address. Step 2 has a locked address label, and then it gets the warning, critical, default protocol, and verbosity. And here, home dashboard, and run my wizard. So here we go, here's mine. You can enter in, enter in youtube.com as the host, enter in 10 for the warning, 20 for critical, default protocol, let's see ICMP, and then verbosity 2. Finish. Get the status. And then you go to route hop service, force a check. Now you see warning 17 hops were counted to YouTube using ICMP. And then because I set the verbosity to 2, I also get to see the command that was used to run this check. And then here is the same thing I did on Nagios.com. I gave a critical because 20 hops were counted. And then here is me pinging my laptop from the Nagios XI server that's running on it. And here we see that we had a UDP exception that UDP timed out, but ICMP was able to count the hops towards the host. So it counted 1 hop using ICMP. And this is because some systems have firewalls up that block using Traceroute using UDP or ICMP. And so I actually found another website, Slack, actually blocks, has firewalls up for UDP and ICMP, so then it attempts to trace the route using TCP and finally does reach it.
I'm wondering, just from like, I don't know, like I've always, for like sysadmin network stuff, done traceroutes using ICMP. That's kind of the default, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does it, do you know like how it actually does kind of a pseudo traceroute using UDP or TCP? Do you know how that works?
From what I saw, it uses Traceroute uses UDP by default because I used the, it had me use the.
Oh, so you're always using the Traceroute tool, but you're telling Traceroute to use ICMP or UDP or TCP.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Traceroute is figuring out how to do that.
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Yeah. So here for UDP, I just run regular traceout, and then for TCP, I run it with the -t argument, and then for ICMP, I run it with the -i.
Nice.
And then I was initially having errors with -t because it requires root privileges to open, I think TCP sockets to like send and get back in the Nagios XI server. So I had to, my good friend Copilot helped me make a script to enable those, enable the command to be run with the enable the traceroute command to be ran with the -t argument by the Nagios user on the server.
You gotta probably set pseudo privileges on that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but yeah, you gotta set those permissions.
Yeah, so it finds where traceroute is, and then sets the pseudo permission for the Nagios user. And then I just had to run this. Oh, jeez. I had to run this just here in the terminal, just execute the script. And then it gave the Nagios user the permission to run it with that argument. And then it worked good. And then, that's how you create a wizard and plugin for Nagios XI.